The insult that shattered peace. Captain Sarah Chan stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching the massive structure of Stellaris Station grow larger through the viewport. The station rotated slowly against the backdrop of 1,000,000 stars, its crystalline architecture catching and reflecting the light of 3 nearby suns. This was supposed to be humanity's greatest moment. After 50 years of peaceful contact with alien civilizations, Earth was finally being invited to join the Galactic Council as a full member. Sarah adjusted her dress uniform, the blue and silver fabric pristine and perfect. Behind her, Ambassador Rodriguez reviewed his speech one more time. The docking procedure took 2 hours. The station was enormous, housing representatives from over 500 different species. Sarah had seen aliens before, during trade missions and diplomatic exchanges, but never so many in one place. As they walked through the grand corridors toward the assembly hall, she saw creatures that defied description. Some floated in bubbles of water, others crawled along the ceiling with dozens of legs, and a few seemed to be made entirely of living crystal. The diversity was breathtaking, yet something felt wrong. The way these beings looked at the human delegation was not welcoming. Their gazes held something else entirely. The assembly hall could hold 50,000 beings. Today it was completely full. The human delegation of 12 people felt impossibly small as they walked to the center platform. Above them, arranged in circular tiers that rose toward a domed ceiling covered in stars, sat the representatives of the Galactic Council. At the very top, on a throne made of pure energy, sat Supreme Chancellor Zephyr of the Etherian Empire. The Etherians were beings of pure thought who had achieved consciousness without physical form millions of years ago. They had founded the council and ruled it ever since. Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward and bowed deeply. The gesture looked practiced and respectful. He had spent months learning the proper protocols for addressing the council. Sarah noticed that no one returned his bow. The silence in the massive hall was complete. Even beings that communicated through sound waves beyond human hearing had gone quiet. Rodriguez cleared his throat and began his prepared remarks about humanity's excitement to join the galactic community, to share knowledge and culture, to contribute to the greater good of all sentient life. Supreme Chancellor Zephyr's voice interrupted him. The words appeared directly in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. The sensation was uncomfortable, like ice water being poured into their skulls. "Silence, primitive! You are not given permission to speak." Rodriguez stopped mid-sentence, his face showing confusion. This was not the protocol they had been told to follow. The Chancellor continued, and Sarah felt her stomach drop with each word. "The Council has gathered not to welcome humanity, but to inform you of your new designation under the Protection Act." The term hit the human delegation like a physical blow. Sarah had heard of the Protection Act. It was meant for species that had barely discovered fire, not for a civilization with fusion reactors and quantum computers. Rodriguez found his voice despite the shock. There must be some mistake. Humanity has achieved faster-than-light travel. We have established colonies on 7 worlds. Our technology meets all the requirements for full membership. The laughter that filled the hall was not kind. It came from 1,000 different throats in 1,000 different ways, but the mockery was universal. A representative from the Korvag's hegemony stood up. These were beings of living metal, their bodies constantly shifting and reforming. "Your faster-than-light travel is a joke. You stumbled upon the technology by accident, copying designs from a crashed probe. Your colonies are barely self-sufficient. Your computers are toys compared to our neural networks that span entire solar systems." Another representative, this one from the Celestial Republic, added their voice. "You still fight among yourselves. You still die from diseases. You still require food and water to survive. You are animals that have learned a few tricks, nothing more." Sarah watched Rodriguez's hands clench into fists at his sides. The ambassador was a patient man who had spent his entire career building bridges between nations and cultures, but even he had limits. "We came here in good faith. We came as equals, offering friendship and cooperation. If the Council cannot see our worth, then perhaps we should reconsider our relationship." The threat was subtle but clear. Humanity controlled several jump points that were valuable for trade routes. Without human cooperation, those routes would be closed. Supreme Chancellor Zephyr's mental voice carried amusement. You misunderstand your position, primitive. This is not a negotiation. Under the Protection Act, humanity is now a ward species of the Galactic Council. Your technology will be confiscated for your own safety. Your governments will be supervised by council appointees. Your expansion will be halted immediately. This is for your own good. Left alone, you would likely destroy yourselves within a century. The Chancellor made a gesture, and suddenly, the hall was filled with holographic images. They showed human wars, nuclear explosions, environmental destruction, poverty, and disease. Every failing of humanity was on display for the assembly to see. But they also showed something else. Sarah noticed it because she was looking for it. The images were selectively edited. They did not show humanity rebuilding after disasters. They did not show the International Space Station where enemies worked together. They did not show the colonies where humans had created paradise from barren rocks. They did not show the medical advances that had eliminated cancer or the fusion plants that had ended the energy crisis. The Council was showing only what they wanted to see. This was not about protection. This was about control. A new figure entered the hall. General Viktor Kazakov of the Colonial Defense Force. He was not supposed to be here. He was supposed to be on his ship, waiting in orbit as an honor guard. The fact that he was standing in the assembly hall meant something had gone very wrong. He walked past the delegation and spoke directly to Rodriguez, not caring that every being in the hall could hear him. Ambassador, Council enforcement ships have surrounded our vessels. They are demanding we surrender our weapons and submit to inspection. They have also sent forces to all human colonies with the same demands. Rodriguez turned back to face the Council. You planned this. You never intended to let us join as equals. Supreme Chancellor Zephyr's response was casual, almost bored. Of course we planned this. Did you really think we would allow a species as violent and chaotic as yours to have a voice in galactic affairs? You will be much happier under our guidance. In a few thousand years, when you have evolved beyond your primitive instincts, perhaps we will reconsider. The dismissal in the Chancellor's tone was complete. As far as the Council was concerned, the matter was settled. Sarah stepped forward. She had not been given permission to speak, but she did not care. You have made a mistake, she said, her voice carrying across the vast hall. You see our conflicts and call us violent, but you do not understand what those conflicts have taught us. You see our struggles and call us primitive, but you do not see how those struggles have made us strong. You think you can simply take our freedom and we will accept it. You are wrong. The Council representatives laughed again. Some pointed appendages at the small human woman who dared to speak without permission. Others made sounds that their translators interpreted as mockery. Supreme Chancellor Zephyr's mental voice was condescending. Little primitive, you speak of strength, but you cannot even leave your planet with machines. You speak of freedom, but you cannot even control your own biology. We have existed since before your star was born. We have witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000,000 species. You are nothing special. You are merely the latest in a long line of children who must be taught their place. Sarah did not back down. She looked directly at where she thought the Chancellor's consciousness was focused. Every species you have conquered was alone. Every species you have subjugated faced you individually. But humans are different. When you attack one of us, you attack all of us. When you threaten our freedom, every human in the galaxy becomes your enemy. You want to teach us our place? Let me teach you something about humanity. We do not kneel. The enforcement ships around the human vessels received their orders. They moved to board and take control. But the human ships were already gone, jumping to hyperspace in perfect synchronization. The colonies received warning messages at the same moment, and defensive shields went up around human settlements. The Council's forces found themselves locked out, unable to penetrate defenses they had not known existed. In the assembly hall, General Viktor Kazakov activated a device on his wrist. A holographic message appeared, visible to everyone. It showed President Martinez of United Earth, flanked by the leaders of every human colony. The president spoke calmly but firmly. To the Galactic Council, you have chosen to treat humanity as subjects rather than equals. This is unacceptable.
You have 24 hours to rescind the Protection Act and apologize for this insult. If you refuse, you will learn why humanity survived and thrived on a world that tried to kill us every day. The choice is yours.
The silent preparation. The 24 hours passed in tense silence. The Galactic Council did not respond to President Martinez's ultimatum. Instead, they mobilized their enforcement fleets and surrounded human space with millions of ships. Supreme Chancellor Zephyr believed the display of overwhelming force would bring humanity to its knees. The Council had conquered hundreds of species this way. They saw no reason why humans would be different. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On Earth, in a bunker 5 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice, General Marcus Thompson stood before a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots indicated Council forces. Blue dots showed human positions. The red outnumbered the blue by a factor of 10,000. Thompson was not worried. He had been preparing for this possibility for 15 years, ever since first contact with the Galactic Council. While diplomats talked of peace and cooperation, Thompson had studied every piece of alien technology humanity could acquire. He had noticed patterns in Council behavior, how they treated younger species, how they maintained control. He had concluded that conflict was inevitable. The Council would never accept humanity as equals. They were too afraid of what humans might become. So Thompson had prepared for war, but not the kind of war the Council expected. The secret was quantum thread technology. 3 years ago, a human scientist named Dr. Emily Watson had made a breakthrough while studying alien faster-than-light communications. She had discovered that space itself could be woven like fabric at the quantum level. This discovery led to the development of weapons and defenses that the Council's technology could not detect or counter. Quantum thread mines could be placed in hyperspace itself. Quantum thread shields could make a ship essentially invisible and invulnerable. Quantum thread weapons could bypass any known defense. Humanity had built an entire fleet using this technology, hidden in pocket dimensions between space and time. Dr. Watson stood next to Thompson, watching the displays. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her mind was perhaps the sharpest in human space. "The Ghost Fleet is ready," she reported. 5,000 ships, all equipped with quantum thread systems. The Council's sensors cannot see them. Their shields cannot stop them. Their weapons cannot hit them. Thompson nodded. "And the virus?" Watson smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Ready for deployment. Once it enters their network, it will spread to every Council system within hours. It will not harm them, but it will give us complete access to their communications, their databases, their defensive systems." Lieutenant Commander Park entered the command center with a report. "General, we have confirmed Council forces have begun landing on human colonies. They are attempting to enforce the Protection Act by taking control of our infrastructure." Thompson's jaw tightened. He had hoped the Council would reconsider, but their arrogance was too great. "What is the situation on Haven Prime?" Park pulled up a feed from the colony. Haven Prime was humanity's first successful colony outside the solar system. 2 million humans lived there, including Thompson's own daughter and grandchildren. The feed showed Council forces, primarily Korvax hegemony units, marching through the streets. They were removing humans from positions of authority and installing their own administrators. The colonists were not resisting. They had been ordered to comply peacefully, to give no excuse for violence. But Thompson could see the anger in their faces. Every human on Haven Prime was a volunteer who had chosen to leave Earth to build something new. They were pioneers, explorers, builders. To be treated like children, to have their work stolen from them was the worst insult imaginable. A young girl, perhaps 10 years old, stood in front of a Korvax unit. She was holding a flower, offering it to the metal being. The Korvax took the flower and crushed it, letting the pieces fall to the ground. The message was clear. Human gestures meant nothing. Human feelings meant nothing. Humans meant nothing. Thompson made his decision. "Begin Operation Starfall. All units, all systems. The Council wants to teach our place. Let's teach them what happens when you corner a human." Across human space, things began to move. The Ghost Fleet emerged from pocket dimensions, appearing behind Council lines. Quantum thread mines activated, creating a maze of invisible destruction and hyperspace routes. The virus entered Council systems through 1,000 different access points. Within minutes, humanity had complete information on every Council ship, every Council base, every Council plan. The Council's million-ship fleet suddenly seemed much less impressive when humanity knew exactly where each ship was, what its weaknesses were, and what its crew was thinking. The first sign of trouble came from the Vorthan system. A council fleet of 10,000 ships simply disappeared. No distress signals, no debris, no explanation. They entered hyperspace to respond to a false emergency created by the virus, and they never emerged. The quantum thread mines had torn them apart at the subatomic level. The second sign came from the Etherean Empire's core worlds. Their entire communication network went dark. The virus had not damaged it, but had simply locked the Ethereans out of their own systems. For beings of pure thought who existed primarily in digital space, this was like suddenly going blind and deaf. The third sign was the most dramatic. On every council world, on every council ship, on every council station, the same message appeared simultaneously. It showed a human child, the same girl who had offered the flower on Haven Prime. She spoke in perfect galactic standard, though she had never learned the language. The virus was translating for her. "My name is Lucy Thompson. I am 10 years old. The metal man crushed my flower. He said humans do not matter. My grandfather says you are wrong. He says every human matters. He says we offered you friendship and you gave us chains. So now we will show you what humans do to those who try to put us in chains. We break them." The council's response was swift and predictable. They sent their greatest fleet, 5 million ships, directly to Earth. They intended to destroy humanity's homeworld as an example to any species that might consider rebellion. Supreme Chancellor Zephyr personally led the fleet, manifesting in a special ship designed to contain his consciousness. The journey would take 3 days through hyperspace. They never arrived. The quantum thread mines had turned the main hyperspace route to Earth into a death trap. Ships entered and simply ceased to exist. After losing 100,000 ships in seconds, the fleet stopped. They tried alternate routes. All were mined. They tried to detect the mines. They were invisible to all known sensors. They tried to clear the mines. The weapons passed right through them. While the Council fleet was stuck, humanity struck. The Ghost fleet hit 200 Council systems simultaneously. They did not attack civilian targets. They did not destroy cities or kill innocents. Instead, they surgically removed every military installation, every government building, every symbol of Council authority. The attacks were so precise, so coordinated, that many Council citizens didn't even know they had happened until they woke up to find their oppressors gone. On the Korvac homeworld, every hegemony military unit was reduced to its component atoms in a single second. On the capital of the Celestial Republic, every government official found themselves transported to a prison moon, their own prison moon, where they had sent dissidents for millennia. But the masterstroke was what happened in the Etherean Empire. The virus did not just lock them out of their systems, it began showing them something they had never seen before: the truth. For millions of years, the Ethereans had edited history, removed inconvenient facts, and shaped the narrative of galactic civilization. Now, every Etherean consciousness was forced to witness the unedited truth. They saw every species they had conquered, every culture they had destroyed, every lie they had told. They saw themselves not as benevolent guides, but as tyrants who had held back galactic civilization for their own benefit. General Thompson watched it all from his command center. The plan was working perfectly, but he took no joy in it. War was never something to celebrate, even when it was necessary. Dr. Watson stood beside him, monitoring the quantum thread network. "The Council is requesting communication," she said. "They want to negotiate." Thompson shook his head. "Not yet. They still think they can win. They still think we are primitives who got lucky. They need to understand that this is not luck. This is what happens when you push humanity too far." He turned to Lieutenant Commander Park. "Phase 2. Show them the swarm."
The Reckoning. The swarm was humanity's final revelation. While the Council had been counting ships and measuring firepower, humans had been building something else entirely. Nanobots, each smaller than a grain of sand, programmed with quantum thread technology. They had been seeded throughout Council space over the past 2 years, hidden in trade goods, attached to diplomatic vessels, scattered in cosmic dust. Trillions upon trillions of them, waiting for a single command. When General Thompson gave that command, the swarm awakened. On every Council world, the nanobots emerged from hiding and began to work. They did not destroy or kill. Instead, they began to build. In minutes, they constructed towers that broadcast a simple message in every language. Humanity was here. The psychological impact was devastating. The Council had believed their space was secure, their worlds untouchable. Now they realized that humanity could have destroyed them at any time in the past 2 years. Every breath they had taken,
Every moment they had lived had been at humanity's mercy. The nanobots could have released poison, destroyed infrastructure, or even converted entire planets to dust. But they had not. They had waited. They had given the Council every opportunity to choose peace. The Council's choice to embrace tyranny had sealed their fate. Supreme Chancellor Zephyr's fleet, still trapped outside Earth's hyperspace routes, received reports from across Council space. World after world fell silent as human forces disabled their military capabilities. The Ghost Fleet struck without warning, appeared without detection, and vanished without trace. The virus turned the Council's own systems against them, redirecting supplies, scrambling communications, and feeding false information to commanders. Within 72 hours of President Martinez's ultimatum, the Galactic Council's military might had been reduced to nothing. On Stellaris Station, panic reigned. Representatives who had laughed at humanity now huddled in fear. They had seen their fleets disappear, their worlds neutralized, their power evaporate. The Korvax representative, the same one who had mocked human technology, approached the human diplomatic quarters. Ambassador Rodriguez had remained on the station despite the danger. The Korvax's metal form was somehow smaller than before, diminished. "Please," it said, its voice no longer carrying arrogance. "Make it stop. We did not know. We did not understand." Rodriguez looked at the being with pity rather than anger. "You were warned. Captain Chen told you that attacking one human meant attacking all humans. You chose not to listen." Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Harmony, now revealed to be armed with quantum thread weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. She watched as more Council representatives arrived to beg for mercy. Each one had the same story. They had believed humans were weak. They had believed the Protection Act was for humanity's own good. They had believed their technology and numbers made them invincible. Chen felt no satisfaction in their fear. This was not about revenge. This was about survival. If humanity had accepted the Protection Act, they would have become slaves. Their children would have grown up believing they were inferior. Their culture would have been erased. Their future would have been stolen. The endgame came when Supreme Chancellor Zephyr requested direct communication with President Martinez. The being of pure thought had never experienced fear before, but now it knew the sensation intimately. The virus had shown Zephyr every military secret humanity possessed, except it was all false information. The real capabilities of the Ghost Fleet, the true nature of the quantum thread technology, the actual extent of the nanobots' programming, all of it was hidden behind layers of deception. Zephyr realized that even now, with the Council defeated, humanity's true power remained unknown. They could have weapons beyond imagination, or they could be bluffing with everything they had. There was no way to know. President Martinez appeared on every screen in Council space simultaneously. She was an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She stood in the United Nations building on Earth, flanked by the flags of every human nation and colony. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute authority. "Members of the Galactic Council, you stand defeated. Your fleets are destroyed or trapped. Your weapons are useless. Your worlds are at our mercy. By any measure of war, humanity has won. But we are not conquerors. We are not tyrants. We are not you." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We could destroy you. The nanobots in your air, your water, your food, they could end your civilizations in seconds. We choose not to." The relief among Council representatives was palpable, but Martinez was not finished. "However, there will be a new order. The Galactic Council as you know it is dissolved. In its place, a new council will be formed. Every species, regardless of their technology level or the time they achieved spaceflight, will have equal representation. No species will rule over another. No culture will be declared superior. The Protection Act and all similar legislation will be abolished. Those who attempt to conquer or subjugate others will face the combined response of all free species. This is non-negotiable." She held up a document. "This is the Charter of Free Worlds. You will sign it, or you will be isolated from galactic civilization until you do." Supreme Chancellor Zephyr's response came through the virus-controlled communication system. The being's mental voice was weak, defeated. "You would make yourselves rulers of the galaxy?" Martinez smiled, but it was sad rather than triumphant. "No, Chancellor. We would make ourselves partners. That is all we ever wanted. You forced us to demonstrate our strength because you would not accept our friendship.
Now you have seen what humanity is capable of when threatened. Imagine what we could achieve together in peace." She gestured to someone off-screen. "The quantum thread mines are being deactivated. Your fleets are free to return home. The virus will be purged from your systems once the charter is signed. The nanobots will remain as a guarantee of peace. If you honor the charter, you will never know they are there. If you violate it, they will activate." One by one, Council species signed the Charter of Free Worlds. They had no choice, but more importantly, many of them did not want a choice. The younger species, those who had lived under Council oppression for millennia, welcomed the change. Even some of the older species, tired of the constant politics and power games, saw opportunity in this new order. Within a week, 487 species had joined the Charter. Only the Etherians hesitated. They had ruled for so long that equality seemed like defeat. But when the virus showed them visions of what the galaxy could become with true cooperation, even they relented. General Thompson stood down the Ghost Fleet but kept them ready. Trust would take time to build. Dr. Watson began working with alien scientists to share quantum thread technology, though she kept the most dangerous applications secret. Captain Chen was appointed as humanity's first representative to the new council, where she would have one vote among many, exactly as it should be. Ambassador Rodriguez worked to establish cultural exchanges to help species understand each other as equals, rather than as superior and inferior. The transition was not smooth. There were those among the former council who resented humanity's victory. There were humans who wanted to use their newfound power for dominance. But the charter held. The nanobots ensured that those who tried to return to the old ways found their efforts futile. On Haven Prime, Lucy Thompson stood in the same square where she had offered her flower to the Korvax unit. A different Korvax stood before her, this one newly appointed as a cultural liaison. It held out a metal flower, crafted with extraordinary skill, each petal a different alloy that caught the light in beautiful ways. "I am sorry," it said, its voice no longer carrying arrogance. "We did not understand that crushing beauty was crushing hope. Will you teach us to see as you see?" Lucy took the metal flower carefully. It was heavy, but beautiful in its own way. "We can teach each other," she said. This moment, repeated in different ways across hundreds of worlds, marked the true victory, not the military defeat, but the beginning of understanding. 6 months after Operation Starfall, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Trade flowed freely without council restrictions. Technology was shared among species that had been kept deliberately primitive. Cultures that had been suppressed for millions of years experienced renaissance. There were problems, conflicts, and misunderstandings, but they were addressed as equals working together rather than subjects petitioning masters. Humanity had given the galaxy a gift it did not know it needed. The recognition that strength came not from dominance but from diversity, not from control but from cooperation. President Martinez stood before the first assembly of the Charter of Free Worlds. Representatives from every member species filled the hall, but this time they all sat at the same level. There were no tiers, no thrones, no physical representation of hierarchy. She spoke to them not as a conqueror, but as a partner. "We gather here not because humanity won a war, but because all of us want our freedom. The old council believed that peace came from order imposed from above. We believe peace comes from justice, shared among equals. They believe that some species were meant to rule and others to serve. We believe that every species has something unique to contribute. They believe that might makes right. We prove that right makes might." The assembly erupted in sounds of approval from hundreds of different species. It was chaotic, discordant, and beautiful. This was what democracy looked like on a galactic scale. It would be messy, inefficient, and sometimes frustrating. It would also be free, fair, and full of possibility. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it, including themselves. The price of that liberation would be eternal vigilance. The nanobots would remain. The Ghost Fleet would stay hidden. The quantum thread technology would be humanity's safeguard. But these were not tools of oppression. They were guarantees that never again would any species be forced to kneel. As the assembly continued, debating trade agreements and cultural exchanges, Captain Chen stood at a window looking out at the stars. General Thompson joined her, still in uniform but more relaxed than she had ever seen him. "Do you think it will last?"